Good evening. All right, we're live. Take a couple minutes and let everybody come on in here. Happy Monday, if there is such a thing. Where I'm just making sure all the technical stuff is in order because I'm the resident expert at that. So tonight we're going to go over basically a day in the life of a mountain man because there's a lot of misconceptions about how just the technicalities of that worked. Short stories by Kate. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Mountain men and their daily struggles. Yeah, it's like anything else, I think that was kind of my driving force and doing this live stream. It's an adventure, right? It's a legendary adventure. Let me turn the light off real quick. There we go. Nope, wrong one. There we go. I'm the lighting guy too, not just the tech guy. Yeah, it's a legendary job, right? But it's still a job. So there's lots of stuff about it that's really interesting and lots of stuff that's really mundane and lots of stuff that was just a pain in the ass for these guys. Excuse my French, but it's true, right? Anybody that's had a job knows it's just another day. And that's what these guys were doing really 99% of the time. Like they were fighting the Blackfoot a lot. They were, getting attacked by grizzlies, but really the bulk of their job was, going out, walking, riding miles at a time and going through this really stratified process and even doing a fair amount of paperwork. So, uh, just like every job, it has its good and its bad sides. All right, we got some people rolling in now. So yeah, that's gonna be what we're going over in general. Not going to be really covering specific mountain men, but kind of like just how everybody's job worked. Ellie McFadden, good to see you. Pennsylvania Plowboy, what's up, guys? Space Cowboy, what's up, man? Steven Heats 30, good to see you. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming by. All right, so we'll just dive into it. So let's kind of go over how fur companies worked to begin with, right? They're large companies in general. It's like everything else. There are, guys that run smaller companies, but in general, the fur trade is dominated by conglomerates, not totally dissimilar to corporations today, right? They have large companies. The Hudson's Bay Company and the American Fur Company are really, by the 1830s, the two that are really clashing. The Hudson's Bay it took up all of Hudson's Bay. And if you look at Hudson's Bay, it's huge. It emanated from Hudson's Bay. It was headquartered in Hudson's Bay and took over the whole continent west of Hudson's Bay. There wasn't a lot of competition until Jacob Astor come along and he founded Astoria, Oregon, and he basically set up this whole intercontinental network and hired his own guys and became kind of the only, there's big companies, but really the only viable competition in the fur game. But the fur was being they were using the fur to ship out to European and East Coast hat manufacturers. So really what's curious about this is the whole movement was driven by a fashion craze, basically. What they would do was take the beaver pelts, shave the long hairs down to just the real fine fur, the felt, and then mold a hat with that. And for a couple decades, that was like the trendiest thing you could have. So it was really these blue collar guys working really hard, really dangerous jobs to fulfill the material that was needed for this fashion craze. Just checking the chat real quick. Yeah, every job has paperwork. Absolutely, right? There's no avoiding the mundane. That's really what life is. Hello and good night, everybody from Jay Fetterman. Absolutely. Space Cowboy. You always bring good ones, man. Okay. Back to how the fur company actually works. So the furs were brought to they were brought to guys called factors. So you would bring your furs back to a central location and there would be agents from the fur company called factors. That's really the genesis of the word factories. It was where they would all meet, produce this product and ship this product out. In this case, product being largely beaver pelts. Like the fur trade changed a little over the decades, basically with fashion and populations. Like they would hunt or trap one animal to maybe not extinction, maybe not even the brink of extinction, but close enough, right? Close enough where you're like, there's not many beaver left, or They drove the buffalo to just about the brink of extinction. But that's you would see this job of fur traders take on different iterations, but the process was usually the same. They'd gather up a bunch of furs, they'd take them to a central location, and they'd ship them out. Let's see here. Yeah, so they're shipped to Europe and to the East Coast to hat manufacturers, and they fed this craze. It was like the coolest thing. It was like the Air Jordans of its time, right? Okay, so where did they find the mountain men or the proto trappers of the time to populate their companies? What they would do, a couple different recruiting strategies. They would post ads in the newspapers. Uh, that's where the ad for Ashley's 100 came from. They posted kind of a Shackleton-esque advertisement, right, saying we're looking for a bunch of young guys who are hungry for adventure and more or less just don't care if they die, right? We'll give you a fair amount of money. If that sounds good to you, then come sign up. And of course, they got a bunch of guys signing up. So they put ads like that. The most famous one is the Ashley's 100 ad, but those were run all the time, particularly in St. Louis. There was a couple other places, frontier towns, but St. Louis, because it's right on the river, was a real jumping off point for a lot of people. So if you wanted to be hired by a fur company for almost anything, we look at it as just mountain men, but they needed porters, they needed guys that could operate boats, they needed guys that could cook, they needed all kinds of skills. So if you wanted to employ yourself with a fur company, generally you'd go to St. Louis. You'd wait to see one of these ads, or you'd wait to hear in the local taverns, kind of word of mouth, that somebody was, in need of guys or they were hiring, and you would go sign up. And it might be kind of a 2 week, maybe a 1 week interim. And what a lot of the fur companies would do would be to rent out a bunkhouse or a hotel or whatever in town and basically sequester all our guys there. So once you signed up, they would basically put you in this house. They'd feed you. They, give you a place to sleep, all that good stuff. But you weren't really allowed to leave because so many guys would sign up, get paid their first half or whatever, or their allowance, and then just bail, just never show up again, or just get drunk and just forget about it and never come back. So they'd get 100 guys signed up, and obviously maybe 60 showed up. So it was just a recurring problem, and they thought it was easier and more cost efficient to just rent out a hotel for them. So you get sequestered in general, right? This isn't every single time, but the general experience, you get sequestered with the other guys for, let's say 5 days to a week, and you load up the ship. A lot of being a mountain man is just taking things off of one thing and putting them on another. And so you load the ship up with everything, and you're looking at enough supplies to last you anywhere from weeks to months. Like, these guys were going out for a long time. So you need food, obviously, you need equipment, you need weapons, you need ammunition, and you need maintenance supplies. So you need tools, you need maps, you need backup maps, kind of the one is none, two is one philosophy, right? But then you're also playing this weight economy about how much you can carry. So it was a real math that had to be worked through, and everything had to be loaded meticulously and checked off. And then you would take off up the river, the St. Louis River. Not great with locations tonight. Had a lot going on today, writing about a lot of locations. So yeah, let's just say the St. Louis River. Check the chat. Does anybody know what river runs through St. Louis? I'm not a geography major, okay? I'm a history guy. Before I digress too much, but let me check the chat real quick. It's always good to talk with everybody. Let's see. Anybody, can you tell me without me having to Google it and look even more foolish? Yeah, the Missouri River. We'll take that. That sounds like a good one. Either way, right? They go up a river. It takes them anywhere from a couple of days to a week to get to usually another tributary, and they get on another riverboat. And really, they piloted them themselves, but the riverboat guys were kind of an economy to themselves. Like, they would take guys where they needed to be, drop them off, come back, take another batch of guys. So that was a whole skill unto itself. But the mountain men get dropped off. Again, you unload everything. You haul everything to shore. Then a lot of times they'd mount up, and then you're looking at several dozen to 100 plus guys navigating in one group to particular points. It's a very organized affair. And I think the biggest misconception that you want to put to rest tonight is that it was lone trappers out there, one guy, maybe two guys at a time. I actually thought that was a positive from the Revenant because it opens by showing you this attack on, you know, several dozen guys at least. So it's a large company of people, at least compared to what, popular culture really sees them as. They're not loners, they're working in groups. So that's a pivotal point behind doing tonight, anyways. All right. So who are the guys? Oh, yeah. Who are the guys that they got? Usually farm boys. They'd come east. You heard about this life of adventure. So a lot of farm boys would go to St. Louis. A lot of former soldiers, a lot of former sailors, a lot of what they would call long hunters from back east, especially in the early iterations of the mountain man trade. So long hunters were what it sounds like, guys who would go out on long hunts for weeks at a time in the Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania area. Daniel Boone was a long hunter. We've talked about that on the Daniel Boone stream. So if you want a little bit more in-depth breakdown of that, go watch that one. That was a good one. But it's a pretty comparable set of skills, other than the long hunters are generally looking for white-tailed deer. But a good transfer of skills. So a lot of those guys would come out, and then a lot of them just had checkered past. They were trying to start a new life. Hugh Glass himself said that he started as a sailor who was forced into being a pirate. I don't know. That's what all pirates say, right? They were forced into it, but then escaped the pirate ship and swam ashore in Texas and was taken hostage by the Karankawa Indians, and then adopted after. Wait, no, he was with a guy who was tortured by another tribe. I think he was adopted by the Karankawa. Then eventually it was like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going north. He goes north with another guy. That guy gets tortured, killed. Hugh Glass escapes, becomes a mountain man. TLDR, right? Let me check the chat one more time. Yeah, Missouri River. We're going with Missouri River runs through, and I'll check later and find out that I'm wrong, but you know what? Such is a live stream. Okay, so that's generally where the guys came from. So they get dropped off, right? This bunch of guys who have varying degrees of experience. They go from camp to camp, a couple days at one place, a couple days at another place, moving up a larger tributary. And their job is basically every day, groups of 2 to 4 guys, usually 3 to 4 guys, go out to the smaller tributaries that run off the larger tributary, and they set traps on those smaller creeks. And you're just hoping to get a haul of beaver. And the beaver are just everywhere at this point. They start to noticeably wane over the decades, right? But from 1810 to 1830, there was beaver everywhere. These guys were getting just tons of pelts and making big money, which is why they kept doing it. I mean, not every mountain man, right? But comparably to the employment opportunities they had back home, they would make pretty good money. So the actual day to day, the 9 to 5 of their operations, right? They'd wake up before dawn, they'd get a breakfast in, usually a cold camp. Like, it depends where they are. If you're in a little safer territory or a little farther south, basically, what is your proximity to the Blackfoot? Like, that is the danger number one out here. That is the tribe, that is the ruling tribe, especially in the areas in Montana, Alberta, Canada, onto kind of eastern Idaho and a little south from there, which is like the primary trapping area, especially in the 1820s. They were the number one threat. So you couldn't really light a lot of fires in Blackfoot territory. You had to be as surreptitious as you can be. I'll get to the chat one second so I can finish this thought up here. So yeah, they would start their day, usually a cold breakfast, but something, right? Then you get all your stuff together, your personal equipment that you're going to need: knife, tomahawk, extra shoes, extra boots if you need them, extra food for yourself, any number of things. And then you would go to your quartermaster, or no, wait, you would go to your captain first, check in with him and your group of 3 to 4, sometimes 5 guys. Say, this is our proposed route, and this is our proposed area for the day. And, we're checking in with you, seeing if that's okay with you. He says, yes. Boss man says it's good. You move on up the creek, right? All right, he says, yeah, you're good to move on up the creek. So then you go to the quartermaster. And does this not sound like every job you've ever had so far? Like I get in, I check in with the boss man, I go see like what tools I need, I go what gear I need, I go talk to the guy who's in charge of that. Same thing here. And they show up to this guy, they check him, they check out the gear that they need. They got to check out their traps. So the traps usually belong to the company. They check those out, check out weapons, check out ammunition, check out any extra stuff that you might need. Then you're going to take your maps, horses, all that stuff, uh, ride down the creek a little ways. And usually it's just a couple miles. They're not going like 20 miles upstream. Everybody's kind of satelliting this one camp. They're not going too far because this is all of like your number one thing is don't get a bunch of guys killed, right? We want to get beaver, but you certainly don't want to get a bunch of guys killed. So they go up, each group gets a different tributary, or maybe one group will go a little bit farther up a tributary and another will trap a little closer to the main river. They check out, they leave a little after sunup. They'll only trap till maybe late afternoon because another cardinal rule is don't be out after dark. So they know that, being out after dark is just the number one recipe for disaster here. So everybody comes back. Really, contact with hostile tribes, like I was saying, if you looked at it on a pie chart, it's just going to be a little tiny sliver. It's just that those were very dangerous slivers. And then it's a lot of times they would encounter friendly tribes. They would obviously encounter all kinds of animals. They also, you would think that they wouldn't need a specified guys for hunting, right? But if everyone's trapping and no one's hunting, they're not going to be bringing in a lot of what the hell's going on there? Whatever. A lot of food, right? So they head out from the river. They head out from St. Louis with dry food. They head out with dried jerky. They head out with dried fruit, beans, stuff like that. But to supply themselves with fresh meat, they need guys going out and hunting. So guys are doing that. And their diet kind of depends on what's available. They'll eat a lot of meat. They'll eat almost like a carnivore diet if they have that amount of meat. There's several accounts of guys eating 6, 8, 10 pounds of meat. So each guy in a company of 100 guys eating, let's say, 5 to 10 pounds of meat, that's a lot of meat. They burn through that pretty quickly. And then everything from there is either dried stuff that they brought with them or plants that they're able to forage, like roots and tubers and stuff like that, nuts, stuff like that, fish that they're able to catch. But it's all kind of dependent on what's available, and they need a lot of it. They're burning, 6, 10,000 calories a day, maybe. It's a lot just from trudging all around, from being cold in the river. It's just a ton of food. And yes, great point. Ellie McFadden says they ate a lot of beaver. Absolutely. They really liked bear. They would eat beaver tail. Usually the meat, depending on what journal you're reading, really. Sometimes guys liked it, but a lot of guys just kind of stuck to the tail. And interesting anecdote there. I think it came from a century earlier in Louisiana, but the heavily Catholic areas got beaver approved as a Lenten food because the Catholic Church considered it to be an aquatic animal like a fish. And I think that's still till today. You can eat beaver during, Lenten days in the Catholic Church. Let's see here. I'm going to check the chat real quick. And we'll jump back into the list here. Afternoon, Comanche moon is a real bright. Yeah, another Comanche moon. Hey, Dan, good to see you. Let's see. Oh, Dan, you're Blackfoot and Cherokee, huh? Well, don't take this personal. Don't take this story personally. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, there was really that was if the Comanche tribe was the most feared in Texas, especially in the early 19th century, the Blackfoot tribe was the preeminent threat to the mountain men. That is they called them Beelzebub because it was like the one thing that you definitely didn't want to see. They weren't even that scared of grizzlies. But yeah, so we covered their diet. They'd usually eat 2 meals a day, a little lunch in between, but they didn't eat a ton during the day. Obviously, that varies from trapper to trapper. Let's see here. Yeah, then all the supplies, usually even before dinner, have to be checked back into the quartermaster, and he has to check everything off. So there's this really mundane, nature to it, but obviously you know that your life is on the line every day. So it's, I don't know, kind of like a deployment in a way where it's this constant up and down of adrenaline. Like there's the banality of danger, I guess, because you wake up, you do these tasks, these administrative tasks, then you're out basically risking your life, maybe doing the most dangerous job on the continent at the time. I'd say top 10 most dangerous jobs. And then you got to come back and take care of all the administration again, check everything back in. Because then if you lost a trap, if you lost a tool, if you lost whatever, right, it was coming out of your pay. And you don't want that. They're not going home with a ton of money. So anything that they do lose is going to suck. They're going home with enough money to make it worth it, but it ain't a ton. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, and then they would collect their furs, and furs would be branded usually to denote the company, sometimes the group, because everybody had to keep a record of what was caught. There had to be an official record of how many pelts were brought in, because nobody was getting paid until you got back. There wasn't a lot of use for cash out on the frontier. Okay, on to our next point. Anybody have any questions so far here? Take a look at the chat. This doesn't have to be like a super long one. I just wanted to get in here and make these points. Oh, and I'll tell you, because our next episode is going to be on a guy who violated these rules. Really, just got a little too cocky. Was actually, this isn't super uncommon. This is really pretty common in the Mountain Man rosters, but was a half Shawnee, half French Canadian. So, he believed that his native blood was going to keep him as safe as any native in the territory, and he didn't really need to be taking all these precautions. He thought, this is costing me money, which, like, he's right. Like, I don't need to go out with 4 other guys and split this 5 ways. I'll go out by myself. I'm sure that I'll be fine, and everything that I bring home goes directly into my pockets. And this is all obviously after the company takes their cut. So, like, everything changes and everything stays the same. Am I right? Let's see. Kin to the Wind has a question. Do you have any native in you? Just asking because when I listen to the narration, you sound like you have an Indian accent. I do not. No, I do not. Not that I know of, right? Just a big fan. Did they own their horses too? Usually the company owned them. Sometimes they require that they supplied their own, but usually this stuff, it's all just stuff that you're checking out from the shop. It's all just like, it's when you read the journals, it's just those two. It's like, oh, you think it's going to be, 90% talking about bear attacks and battles with the Blackfoot, and like most of it is just like the food sucks today. I lost a trap that's going to come out of my pay. The boss man's just on my ass for whatever. So it's this different wording, obviously, but it's the same type of thing as today. Because they're blue collar guys. Like the Mountain Men are absolutely the prototype of that. Pennsylvania Plowboy says you owe your soul to the company store. Exactly. It's the 16 tons of beaver pelt. What percentage do they get? That I really should have looked that up. I think maybe something like 80-20, where the company's taking a good little piece off the top because they're giving you everything, right? The transportation there, the tools, the other guys to work with. Because it was like a trade in a lot of ways where you were not just instantly thrown into being a trapper. There's a lot of just camp work that had to be done. So that's your first job. It's an internship or a apprenticeship. Your first job is to clean all the pelts and take care of the fire and watch the camp. And then your next job, you'll be the bottom guy in the group of 4 who probably going to be watching out, for Blackfeet attacks. And you just work your way up from there. There's a pay scale to that too. But what percentage, I don't know. I should look that up. And I will look that up after I'm done with the stream about it. Which profession is more dangerous, a mountain man or 21st century deep sea oil rig? Oh man, I don't know. I'm not sure what's more dangerous, but I think you'd find if you took a lot of oil rig divers back to the 1820s, I think a lot of them would sign up to be mountain men. I think it's a very similar type of individual and personality traits. All right, I'm gonna scan through the chat real quick. Yeah, the Hugh Glass Pet Detective says Hugh Glass is such a wild story. Yeah, it's just like like they need I wish they had made a movie about his whole life. That's I think I said during the Revenant stream that I wish they had started with him jumping off a pirate ship or something because it's just it goes 0 to 60. His whole biography is just I was a pirate, I got attacked here, I got attacked by a bear, I survived this attack, and then he died by getting attacked by the Arikara on a frozen river. As a lot, you know what I say, oh, only a small slice of these days were attacks, and that is true, but the attacks killed a lot of people, and Glass was one of them. There's several guys, and a lot of times they're only listed by a nickname or a single name, so it'll just say like whatever, Rocky Mountain Jim killed by Blackfeet today. Too bad. He was a good guy. That's it, you know. And that's another kind of all right. So a common trope is that the mountain men weren't super educated, didn't keep journals, didn't read a lot. It really kind of just depends on who you're talking about, you know, in that a lot of them were super literate. A lot of them kept really detailed journals. I think Jedediah Smith is a preeminent example there. He kept these uh, really well written journals, beautiful handwriting, frankly, and it was pretty circumspect in how he looked at himself and the world around him. They're really introspective journals, and someone who clearly has a philosophical bent. So it's not just a bunch of Neanderthals out there, but there were some. There were some, and many of them did not make it back. It was, in fact, a very dangerous job. Any fights between the two companies, not technical battles, but a lot of sabotage. And there was a fair amount of cooperation too, because really nobody wanted to see the other company just get, you know, massacred. But there's just like, yeah, it'd be like Coke and Pepsi, right? They're not going to go out of their way to help each other. What technology did the Blackfoot possess in order to achieve such strength? Dan Robertson asked. Number one thing, the horse. And I think that's kind of a weird thing to hear for a lot of people, but the horse, their introduction or reintroduction, depending on who you want to talk to. I don't like going down that rabbit hole. But when they were reintroduced in the 1600s and spread northward, that's a technology. Like that's an animal for sure, but that's a technology. That is like comparable to the release of the iPhone, because that just within, I don't know, a couple of years, certainly probably not a full decade, changed the entire lifestyle of virtually the whole middle of the continent, right? It changed the way they fought, the way they hunted, the way they traveled. It was just as close as you can get to an overnight historical change. And specifically for the Blackfoot, they were able to utilize that a lot like the Comanche did uh, in their warfare. They became a excellent mounted warriors, and a lot of the northern tribes really got the horse later because it was kind of this diaspora from Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico northward. So the Comanche really got a hold of them first, and then the Cheyenne, Kiowa, Arapaho, and then on northward. So the Blackfoot really got to the horse relatively late. And in that, but despite getting there late, they just made huge, huge jumps and basically drove everybody that they didn't get along with before the horse. They basically drove them out. And in some cases, just outright eliminated them. Let's see. Ellie McFadden says they trained all. I'll have to reread that. Can you restate that, Ellie McFadden? I'm not sure what that means. All right, scanning through here. Would anybody in the chat volunteer to be a mountain man? Oh yeah. So let me wrap the actual, summary of their trip up. So they'd go through a couple weeks or a couple months, and then they'd pack everything back up, all the furs that they've gotten. And this is could be tons of furs, right? So all of this stuff has to be loaded bundle by bundle onto these boats. And that was another thing the Revenant did a good job of showing. These guys, when they get attacked, are hauling these. They look like hay bales of beaver pelts. They're hauling them and stacking them on the boat. And I mean, each one of those was worth, in the equivalent of today's money, thousands, a couple hundreds of dollars, certainly. And you add those all up, that's lots of money. So, in the interim of loading them on the boat and then getting back to St. Louis, you want to make sure that you don't get attacked, that they don't catch on fire, that they don't fall into the river, right? There's lots of things that could and did go wrong. A lot of these guys' journals, a lot of Jed Smith specifically, is just thing after thing after thing. It's like when Sideshow Bob keeps stepping on rakes and they whack him in the face. You've seen that episode? He's just surrounded by a bunch of rakes, and he'd step one way and he'd step on a rake and whack him in the face, and he just goes like, oh, steps another way. Same thing. That's a lot like Jed Smith's journals. Like it's just thing after thing after thing. And everything that happens that goes wrong, it's like, yeah, that's unfortunate. And it also costs you tons of money. And every pelt that it costs you is one pelt you're going to bring back and get paid for. So even if you had a great haul and your boat sunk, it's all gone. It was all for nothing. So, and these guys are paid off the percentage of pelts that they bring back. It's not on a salary. So nobody's getting paid. And then some guy, the last final point, just like today, I think you compare it to, you could compare St. Louis to maybe an oil boom town, and a lot of the trappers to oil workers. They would come into these towns. Some guys would save their money and some guys would not, right? And then the cycle would just continue. Some guys would accrue a fair amount of wealth and then go do something else. Even Jed Smith bought a nice house in St. Louis and then just never made it back to it, went on one final trip. But that was basically the ongoing cycle of these guys' professional life. And it's not as enthralling as to hear about Blackfoot attacks and grizzly attacks, but it's like I said, the day-to-day reality of what they lived. And I think that's a crucially misunderstood part of mountain man history. And if you don't understand that, you can't really fundamentally understand the mountain men. So that said, we'll dive into the chat now. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So Ellie McFadden says the natives trained all their life for battle. Absolutely. Absolutely true. I mean, almost literally true, like all their lives. As soon as they're able to walk, any horsebound tribe would usually have their toddlers on horses. They would have them play with blunted bows and arrows. They'd play with them at first, and then they'd go hunt birds with them. Then they'd move up to smaller game, prairie dogs, rabbits, stuff like that. And then they'd go in their own kind of apprenticeship. They'd go on buffalo hunts, but you wouldn't let them hunt at first. So you'd have 11, 12, 13-year-olds out there kind of observing and just getting a feel for how everything worked. And then you kind of work your way into the hunt from being the farthest in the circle or kind of semicircle around the herd that they're hunting. You're in the outer, furthest away layer of that. You're kind of just like picking off strays. And then as you advance, you get closer and closer to the actual herd. So it's its own tiered process. And there's, I think, a great case example of this is the Council House fight in San Antonio in 1839. Obviously, or not obviously, but the story, if you're familiar with it, is a group of Comanche came into San Antonio to trade hostages, and they're negotiating. All of that goes south. There's a big fight in the streets of San Antonio, and these 12, 10-year-old Comanche kids are there, and they have their play-sized bow and arrows, right? And they have actual tips on them, but I mean, it'd be like something you got at like a whatever toy store today, right? I don't know what toy stores are left; they closed them all. But clearly a toy, right? They shot a judge, clear it straight in the heart, took that guy out. So it's like, no, these kids are effective. Like they were well trained from a young age. That's a good point. Absolutely. Let's see. Oh man, a lot of comments here. Awesome. Good to see everybody. Let's see. Pet Detective says, I'm not signing up for that job. I like my creature comforts too much. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Me too. I'm not going. I like YouTube. Let's see. Dan Roberts says he would be a mountain man. He's like, I've hiked 2 miles uphill 5 days a week the past 10 years in the Texas outdoors. No AC. Well, yeah, maybe you'd be suited for it. Me and Pet Detective's adventures, we're staying home. I miss the days when the ships were made of wood and the men of steel. We walk on the shoulders of giants. That is true. That is true. Though they couldn't operate an iPhone. Say that. Everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. Do you have any episodes highlighting the severity of the Blackfoot? Our next episode, I think you'll really like it. Should come out tomorrow night. There should be an ad for it. It's going to be kind of late tonight to put it out. I'll probably put the ad out tomorrow morning. It'll be out at its normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. It's called The Headless Mountain Man, which I mean, like the title kind of gives the whole thing away, right? But like, you know, so does Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, still scrolling through here. Space Cowboy. Mind your manners, dog. I can't even read that one. That's hilarious, though. If you see a trademark and a beaver emoji and next to Space Cowboy's comment, that's pretty funny. Let's see. Blackfoot, Ellie McFadden says Blackfoot were very much against the trappers. Absolutely. I don't know what the Blackfoot called the trappers, but I know the trappers called the Blackfoot Beelzebub, which is like a strong statement, especially in the 19th century. Let's see. Kin to the Wind says, it is very bright here, the Comanche moon. It's a waxing gibbous moon. I'm going to take your word for it. And we were talking last night about how the Comanche moon, it's like, oh, it's a full moon now. Okay, well, you know, if you're in Austin, San Antonio, you think like, oh, yeah, that's nice. And 150 years ago, that would have been the single worst thing you could see. You probably just stay up all night, you know, on guard because that was it's called the Comanche moon because it's when they would make their attacks most frequently, which makes sense because it's when you have the most light. But that would be a bad night. That's one of those like examples I think of when I see it that like gives me a chill down my spine. Space Cowboy, any notable mountain women? You know, honestly, you could say Sacagawea. Really, they were the Lewis and Clark expedition really almost literally laid the groundwork. They certainly laid the framework for where the mountain men were even going to go. They were the first people to even see any of this stuff. I'm not terribly educated on Thomas Jefferson's uh, preconceptions of what they were going to see, but I think from some of the letters he was saying like, well, you might see dinosaurs, you might see ice caps, you might see woolly mammoths. Like, just let us know. Be sure to record it, you know. But people didn't know, so they didn't know if there were even streams out there worth looking for beaver in. I'm trying to think of other ones. I mean, there were several trappers that married native women and brought them along, so it wouldn't be uncommon at all to see a woman or a couple women in a mountain man group. Let's see here. That's a good question. Let's see. Kindred the Wind says, if you're going to do something outside, you should at least have one companion. I mean, that's the mountain men agreed with you, right? 1 is none, 2 is 1, and 3 or 4 is probably better. And this example tonight or tomorrow night in the tomorrow night's episode was a pretty rare thing. I think this one guy did it one time, and then pretty much everyone else was just like, okay, well, no need to learn that lesson twice, right? All right. Oh man, a lot of stuff rolling into the chat here. Dan Robertson says he can cast shadow puppets on the side of his house. That'll keep the Comanche away. Let's see. Yeah, we answered that. Let's see. Oh, Dan Robertson just became a member. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, if you want to become a member, we're adding benefits to that. We're kind of like, we need to do some polls and see what everybody wants. But right now we've got a bunch of members only episode, like our older stuff we're putting as just members only. And I'm thinking about doing like a special episode, maybe one or two a month. It would kind of depend on what we could get out. And then maybe daily, weekly live streams. I don't know. Well, I'm going to run some polls for the supporters and see what everybody would like, because we work for the consumer. You guys are our boss. Sacagawea is a great answer. Yeah, well, they're coming off the top of my head too, so thank you. No, thanks for joining, Dan. And if you want to join, there's a join button. Honestly, I don't know where it's at here, but underneath all of our episodes, there's a join button, and we're going to be adding a lot of fun stuff to that. Sorry, I'm just checking the chat real quick here. But yes, the more people that join, the more cool stuff we can do. Like I said, members only episodes, live streams, maybe meetups. And I'm thinking about going to several places, especially that are, in driving distance of Austin. So the Alamo, the Battle of Plum Creek site. There's a couple places here in Austin. What's the name? There's actually an episode we did where I found the location of the fort and where they actually buried a Texas Ranger. And it's like in the parking lot of a Popeyes now. But I can go to that Popeyes. Okay, is it Blackfoot or Blackfeet or both? I think it's Blackfoot first was the first iteration, and then it became I might be black. I might have this reversed, but they became a confederacy of all their bands, right, and a couple other tribes, and then it became Blackfeet. But there is an actual difference, and it's a chronological difference. Short Stories by Kate says, good question. Yeah, there's a lot of good questions in here. And like I said before, like a lot of you guys are way more educated in the specifics of these stories than myself. So it's always cool to learn stuff in here too. Let's see. Beaver tail was a valuable source of fat. What did the trappers and natives use it for? For that, like that's why bear was so popular, because you could find a lot of elk, deer, stuff like that. But it's similar to rabbit starvation, where there's just not a lot of fat on elk or deer. So you would supplement it with bear fat, beaver fat, and they would kind of like drizzle it on there, or just eat the meat from these animals, because there was not a lot of fat, and that was just something that was such a rare commodity. It was almost literally like gold on the frontier, which is kind of an interesting biology lesson too, right? I know like all the current studies say like, well, basically, if you just hit your protein needs, then it doesn't matter if you eat carbs or fat. Fascinating, right? But making the point here that like these guys were always starved for fat, and when they couldn't get it, they were eating roots and tubers. But it's they were like early keto guys, I guess. We have you thinking on your feet tonight. You certainly do. You certainly do. I'm at a standing desk too, so literally you do. Oh, bottom right side for the membership button. Thank you guys. The members even helped me to get more people to join. Thank y'all very much. Told you I'm the only tech guy. I'm the lighting guy. So I'm the director technically. So I don't get everything right. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions? Keep hitting me with them. We're just hanging out for a second. Oh, okay. So on the topic of the next live stream, which should be Wednesday night, we'll launch the next episode tomorrow night, and then we'll do Wednesday night live stream is the schedule that we're looking at. The topic that I'm looking at, we were talking a lot about Art Bell and cryptids and stuff. I found an episode of, I can't, it's a big channel. I will link it in the description after I get off here. But it's a supposed war between the Choctaw and Bigfoot. So next live stream on Wednesday night, should be on Wednesday, we'll be diving into that. And that's just between me and y'all, anybody watching this. Do you do all your own research? Yeah, I do. Thanks to Half Price Books. Got a ton of really cool books from Half Price Books. So if you're in the Central Texas area, highly recommend them. Great business name too. You walk in there and it's like, well, what do you have? They got a bunch of books for half price. Salty Cracker issued a good caveat as to why he doesn't do any meetups. Anything goes sideways at a meetup that a country is endorsed. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I get that. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there. That's a good point. Let's see. Yeah, any more questions about the Mountain Men? If you have any like, you know, pre-questions to the Choctaw Bigfoot thing, we can dive into that. Any topic suggestions? And if you have any Western suggestions for us to do a movie night for. We wrote everything down from last night. Oh, Dan, I meant to email. We got working today. One of the episode from tomorrow had a bunch of stuff I had to edit out or fix in the edit. So I will email you. I'll email you tonight when we get off here. There's like no routine to the YouTube life. It's like being a mountain man where like you do the same mundane stuff and then like 10% of the time things go crazy. It's pretty much just like being a mountain man, if I'm honest. Not really. Let's see. Rebecca Ewell, being Cherokee, I was brought up believing Bigfoot was a shapeshifter or Nephilim. Yeah, that's, not to spoil it, but that's kind of the Choctaws, summation of it or view of it. What knife did the mountain men carry? Not Bowie knives because they weren't really around yet. So kind of whatever they could get their hands on. It had a lot to do with what you could afford. Let's see. Armenian Bishop says, what was John Fremont's signature achievement as the Pathfinder? Oh man. His signature achievement. I don't know. I could say what his biggest folly might have been. I thought he was a real weirdo ever since I read about the in San Quentin when he ordered Carson to shoot the two Mexican kids coming across the bay because he said, "Oh, they're spies." That always kind of made me change my view of him. I thought like this guy's nuts. Certainly getting over the Rockies, like anytime you do a transcontinental expedition, I think he was a good leader, but he wasn't super popular. His biggest achievement may have been getting himself named the Pathfinder. Let's see. Dan Robertson says the Ballad of Buster Scruggs again. Let's see. Ellie McFadden says they carried butcher knives. Yeah, pretty much. And they needed kind of one. They didn't have one for this job and one for the other. Like they needed a multi-purpose knife. Space Cowboy says a Leatherman or a Gerber. If they had them, they would carry those for sure. Oh, John Fremont. Yeah, okay. John Fremont was a hardcore abolitionist. Okay, fair enough. Right. I think that's a fair point. Because it's a tough thing with history. Nobody, it's just like today. Like everyone's human. It's hard to disagree with 100% of what anybody does. Some people you can, but no, that's a good point. That's a good point. And like I said, I don't want to take away from the validity, the arduous nature of his expeditions. But I would also say he made it a point that he was known as a hardcore abolitionist. He was a fantastic self-promoter. But you're right. Maybe I'm taking too harsh of a view. But it was like, why are you going to tell him to shoot two guys? A complicated man who no one understands, right? We will be doing some more videos on Fremont, though. Because like him or not, he is a fascinating guy. and had so much. I'm from California, and everything there is Fremont this and Fremont that. Let's see. So I agree with you, Armenian Bishop. I'm going to soften my view on that a little bit. But you have to agree that having two guys shot for no reason is kind of weird. Okay. Just rolling through the chat again. Man, thank y'all for showing up. This is always fun. I have a good time doing these. Oh, and we'll talk about Shasta too. I'm going to do some history on Mount Shasta and all the weird stuff that happens there. I have two ancestors that died defending the Alamo, Davy Crockett and James Robertson. Man, that's a lot, really, percentage-wise, right? That was kind of a rough day, right? And that's I don't know if I would stay, to be honest with you. I might be like, well, you guys got this handled, right? There's no use in me being here. I told my mom that once, and she's from Texas, right? She was so disgusted with me. I was like, well, you want me to stay? You want me to stay there and get killed with the rest of these guys? And she was like, well, she was not happy with my answer. Let's see. Where in Cali are you from? The Central Valley. The land of Merle Haggard. Let's see. Fremont was in Missouri in 1861, where he did well, but was handled roughly by Stonewall Jackson. I didn't know that. I haven't done a lot of like Civil War era research on Fremont, to be honest with you. Who's your favorite pro wrestler to use a mountain man persona? Oh, a pro wrestler that used a mountain man persona? I don't know. I'm trying to think right now. Hacksaw Jim Duggan? Let's see. Mount Shasta is home of tall white people. This is civilization lived in the mountain. Could be. I've read a lot of weird stuff about Mount Shasta. I was talking about it last night. Like, I've only been there one time, but it was one of those places where you're like, well, if they told you something's going on here, you wouldn't be surprised. Dan says he's from the Bay Area. It's nice to be in Texas. I feel the same way, man. Armenian Bishop is in Belmont Hills. Hey, okay, cool. I know where that's at. Let's see. A couple of good movies from Tim. Oh, how do you say that? Oh, Tim and Ellen Moran. Let's see. Across the Wide Missouri. I have not seen that. The Big Sky. I have not seen that. The Saga of Andy Burnett. I have not seen that. You're making me look like a real neophyte here. I'm going to write those down. We'll check them out. Thank you. Ellie McFadden coming in from Marion, Arkansas. Good to have you. I haven't been to Arkansas. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I need to get out there. Let's see. Armenian Bishop has a great view of the San Francisco Bay. Yeah, so did Fremont when he had those guys shot. Let's see. Deer in my backyard, he says. Yeah, it's beautiful up there. And honestly, grew up in California. I have a lot of family up in the Redwoods, and it's like, not my family. I'm not saying this about my family. I love my family, right? But there are some hillbillies up there. Actually, I was out in East Texas a couple of years ago, and this guy with like a Dale Earnhardt hat and like gas station belt buckle, cool guy. But he said, where are you from? I said, Northern California. He said, man, most hillbilly people I ever met in my life came from Northern California. And I was like, well, I feel the same way, man. But if you're in East Texas and they're calling you a hillbilly, you need to take a look at things, right? Let's see. Big Sky is a great movie. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Absolutely. A lot of these things, like, I've never heard of these. So without you guys, I wouldn't know. Let's see. Does anybody have any guesses on the mountain man that I'm talking about that ended up without his head? I believe in 1810 in Montana, which is super early in mountain man history. And in the context of the Choctaw live stream, I don't know. I'm combing through the mountain man journals and I'm not seeing a lot of Bigfoot accounts. So That's unfortunate, isn't it? Let's see here. I started this channel to be like a real serious academic endeavor, and it is. It is, but nothing wrong with a little Bigfoot talk. All right. Combing through the chat again. If you have a chat to get it in now. I'm looking through. Are you more interested in the YouTubing aspect of history or the discovery through the process of YouTube? Both. It seems like you're passionate about the subjects. It goes beyond expertise reporting. Yeah, it's just I've been interested, especially in Old West history, my whole life. I grew up in a cowboy family, and that's the books that were around, and I always found it the most, uh, you know, the it was kind of where my family came from, so the most maybe pertinent to my life. Yeah, I've liked it my whole life, and now through this channel, I'm surprised to learn how many people are interested as well. Blaze Plays says, huge fan of your storytelling and the incredible untold legends. Been a fan. Oh man, thank you very much. Love from Canada. Thank you. Thank you. Where in Canada are you at? That's another place we need to make a trip up to. A lot of really good history up there. Really, the Battle of Belly River is one that we did that was just a brutal fight between the Blackfoot and the Cree. I think it was the last intertribal conflict in North America. A lot of people really underestimate Canadian history. Dan Robertson grew up in rodeo. Yeah, yeah, it's a hell of a world, isn't it? It's a culture unto itself. It's really an American subculture. Let's see. The man that scored the buffalo was deciding to prepare his meat in the wrong way. Not sure what you mean by that. Kin to the wind. Can you explain that? Oh, okay. Blaze Play says you're from Saskatchewan. Yep. I think the Battle of Belly River happened in Alberta. Yeah, I need to look more into the tribes versus settlers stories that come from Canada because there's a lot and a lot of mountain man specific stories. Is it David Thompson who's the big explorer in Canada? It's something like that, right? A lot of Scots up there, a lot of Irish guys really were big Canadian explorers. All right. We're at almost an hour. So I'm going to scroll through the chats one more time. Again, thank you all for showing up. So to kind of summarize what we got coming up, see, tomorrow, the Headless Mountain Man. Wednesday, we'll be doing the Choctaw Bigfoot live stream. We'll have another History Fight Championship, I believe. Let me see. What day I have that written down for? That is, gosh, I forget. That should be, I had some stuff I had to change. Another History Fight Championship coming up, though. I think that could be Thursday, depending on the release schedule. Then we got some stuff on Young Washington coming up. We got some stuff on the Cheyenne coming up. Some stuff on Bigfoot Wallace coming up, the Ranger. And yeah, a lot of stuff coming up in the next 4 months or so. We're really, trying to make strides here. Let's see. Anybody else want to get anything in here? Davy Crockett was a great Disney series from Armenian Bishop. Yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, watch the Real versus Real live stream I did on the Davy Crockett reality versus the TV series. They're a little lazy with the casting, with just Fess Parker being Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett. But when I think about it, it's like, well, he's the man for the role, They were 10 years apart. The series ran 10 years apart. And it's like, well, do you have a better guy to play Daniel Boone? Probably not. Let's see. Oh, look up the Lost Colony of Mount Shasta. I do not know about that. Like, I feel bad even saying I'm from Northern California because really I'm from Central California, but nobody knows what that is. So you say Northern California, but really everybody up in Shasta, that's Northern California. And those people, y'all are your own breed of strong people. It is wild up there. Let's see. Sam Kelly might be a cool outlaw to cover. Okay. Cool. Sam Kelly. I'll write that down right away. And we want to do one on the Australian outlaw too. Ned Kelly. Kelly. See, some people type that out. I'm old school. We write it down here. Speaking of Canada, check out Core Blunt. Oh man, I've known Core Blunt for 15 years. I want to be in the cavalry. I think I've heard that, but I'm gonna listen to it tonight too. He's a legit cowboy. He's Alberta, right? That's legit cowboy country. It's too cold up there. Though a lot of old cowboy journals will say like, man, it's better to come up to Alberta or Montana because the food is just fantastic. They don't feed you in Texas. They work you to death. Here, it's like, a little more manageable. It just gets too cold. That really sucks. But there's tons of journals that are just like letters to their friends in Texas going like, dog, give it up in Texas. That's not the place to be. Come up north. They're working you to death down there. Let's see. Armenian Bishop says, I saw three gold crosses in a clear blue sky over Mount Shasta. I don't know what to think about that. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Couldn't really be a bad thing, right? Let's see. I didn't know anyone knew Core Blund outside the Canadian prairies. Yep. My friend in Fresno showed me Core Blund. Man, honestly, probably 15 years ago. And he's just a fantastic songwriter. And is he like the official musician for the Oilers? Big Oilers guy, right? Let's see. Look up J.C. Brown, 1904, discovered the lost city of perfect. This is what we need. Okay. All right. That is perfect. Thank you, Rebecca Ewell. Is it Ewell or Ewell? Let me know. That's gold you're feeding me. That's fantastic. Okay, let's see. There might be some Art Bell on that. I don't know. I have to look tonight. Ewell, perfect. Got it. Thank you so much. Let's see. Another one too. Richard Franklin Tankersley. Oh, perfect. All right. See, you guys just got so much stuff. Like I don't know about any of this stuff. And I mean, come on, to be fair, it's like only so many hours in the day. Let's see. Tankersley. All right, cool. Let's see. A lot more Core Blund fans. I love the song Gothest Girl I Can by Core Blund. Hurtin' Albertans, yeah. With nothing more to lose, too much oil money, never enough booze. Yeah. Richard Franklin. Yeah, okay, got that one. I wrote that down. Yeah, Corb is huge, like nation. Well, at least like in the north, and he's toured through the Central Valley. Let's see, and obviously Coulter Wall. Let's see, running through the comments one more time before we check out. Corblund came to Reno a few years ago. He's got a great band too, right? Short Stories by Kate says, great name. Yeah, Short Stories. I know you're a country music fan, so check out Core Blund. Let's see here. Yeah, actually, my grandpa was like probably the biggest cowboy poet in the country for several years. Pat Richardson, if you go check him out, he's really good. But he did a show with Core Blund. Oh man, he passed away in 2016, so 2013 or something, right? And he didn't really know who Core Blund was. Like it was a cowboy festival of some kind, something like that. And I was like, you're gonna be at the show with Core Blund. And so yeah, it's been a long time. Been a Core Blund fan. Coulter Wall's dad was the premier of Saskatoon. Really? Yeah, like a governor. I did not know that. Okay, that's we got to talk to somebody from the area to get that. Okay, I did not know that. He had a lot of money behind him, huh? I mean, the guy's good though. Like either way, right? I'm a big Shooter Jennings fan, and everyone was like, oh, he's got a lot of money behind him. It's like, dude, that guy's really good. I thought he's super talented for 20 years. He's probably the best producer in country music now. So, I'm just saying, like, doesn't mean you suck if you had a lot of money behind him. Brad Wall was his name, though. I did not know he was the premier of Saskatoon. I'm going to look that up too. You guys are giving me tons of stuff to look up tonight. Let's see. Who's the guy that wrote the song Just a Little Bit South of Saskatoon from Slapshot, right? That was a great song. Who wrote that? Anybody know? The Canadians in here? Let's see. I keep saying I'm going to scroll through the chat one more time, but you guys keep hitting me with really interesting stuff. Let's see here. JC Brown, I got that written down. Did you ever do the story on Captain Mac Hayes? I did not. Can you explain that one, Ellie? Miss McFadden? Excuse me. No, okay, Blaze Pays is like, what song is that? It's I forget the lyrics to the verse, right? But it's the hook is like, just a little bit south of Saskatoon. And they're like riding in the bus. It's a good like country song. They kind of slip in there. Another great band is Halden Wolford and the High Beams. That's a good name. Songs are Hippie in My House and Because of Zombies. Are they like that country? Like country? A lot of music fans in here. All right. I like it. That's the official Austin way to say cool. You say, all right. Let's see here. Okay. So I think we're getting to where we can wrap it up. Sonny James, a little bit. Oh, Sonny James, a little bit south of Saskatoon. Perfect. That's a great tune. Fantastic movie. I think it holds up today. I've never played hockey in my life, and it's hilarious. What are the brothers' names? The Hanson brothers, right? Best part of the movie. Maybe the goalie interview too. The Quebec goalie. Armenian Bishop heading out for the night. Good to see you. Have a good night. Yeah, and we're wrapping up here too. Just kind of shooting the breeze for a second. But yeah, like I said, tune in tomorrow. I think everybody will really like that. We'll hopefully get out 2 to 3 episodes a week, 3 to 4 live streams, something like that. And check out our shorts too. We're putting out shorts now, the videos, not the garment. And yeah, just trying to come up with a lot of new stuff. If you have an idea for a live stream, either shoot me an email, historyattheokcorral@gmail.com. Put it in the comments. I check the comments every day. So anything you like to see, throw it out there. No judgment here. There are no bad ideas. There are bad ideas. But no, throw it out there. Let's see. A Canadian movie called Goon was a spiritual successor. Really? A spiritual successor of Slapshot. Very good. It's a long shot, but if you enjoy it, well, okay. All right. So it's called Goon. We might put everybody go watch it. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the next live stream as well. So it's going to be Choctaw, Bigfoot, Goon. Did you see my Snowshoe Thompson mention? I did not. Snowshoe Thompson. I don't know anything about him. Can you hit me with it again? Because I'm losing where you're at here. Scrolling through. Yeah, hit me with it one more time before we get out of here. Blaze Place, thank you for stopping by. We're getting out of here too. So I'm just going to see about Snowshoe Thompson real quick. Let's see. Yeah, and Young Washington, like I said, I think that'll be a cool one. That's a little bit of a turn for us. The trailer is really popular on YouTube now, so now's probably a good time to release that. Let's see. All right, so you know what, Space Cowboy? I'm going to go Google Snowshoe Thompson, and we'll see what that is, and I'll report back next live stream. Dan Robertson says good night. Come out to Cypress Creek. Yeah, I'm gonna hit you up when I'm done here. And all right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Come back tomorrow night. We'll have an episode. The next night, live stream. And we're gonna keep that pattern going for a little while. So thank you all again for coming along on the ride. And we will see you next time. Thanks again. Have a good night.